Hello, legends and super legends. Welcome to Veloharmony Live. Subscriber Hangout. Wednesday, midweek here. We're getting going. Let me get my lighting going here. We've got a lot of storms in the area. I hope things are going well for you guys. There's a lot of storms in the area. Lots of rain since last Friday, on and off. And it's supposed to continue well into the weekend. So it's just, showers and then you get little breaks. But it's going to move through the center of the country up to the East Coast on the weekend. So it's one of those things. It's May storms. It's kind of unusual. Usually by now the weather settles, but we're still getting fronts. Hey, Chris. Ian, good evening from the UK. So I hope you all got to get some K's in. It's the middle of the week here. Get yourself ready for the weekend. Hey, John. It's raining in West Michigan. Hi, Jasper. Daryl, how you doing? Yeah, Daryl, I got your message about Discord app. Yeah, I'm fully set up on the Discord app. In fact, that's what I use to do the remote fit with Jamal. And I'm going to be using it not only for remote fit, but you guys that are on Patreon, you have access to reach me. That's part of your perks, depending on which level you're on. So we're fully set up on Discord. I like the app. It works really well, and it's very stable. You can do text, you can do video. So it's really cool. And I think you can even live stream there. So, for people that I'm supporting, one-on-one, we can do that. But I like that. That's a good way to be able to reach people. Hey, Eric. Happy midweek. Oh, you got the jersey. Great. Yeah. That's a Santini jersey. Yeah, the weather patterns are different because this time of year, usually in the past, it would be stable. Because May, it starts getting pretty warm to hot, but that's not the case. And we've got this thing. I had to go out today and get some pest control stuff and spray the secondary garage. There were like centipedes all on the garage. They're trying to get away from the water, from the rain. And there just seemed to be just a slew of them all over the walls, and they're coming in the house. So I went ahead and sprayed around the foundation to just kind of keep them under control and keep them away. But yeah, so we've got a lot of centipedes crawling around, and they're trying to get away because we've had so much rain. And, going out, I was outside today. I saw guys doing yard work. It's like a swamp. I don't know how they can cut grass, because if I try to use my tractor, it just sinks, so it's just, I guess they have to keep their dollars coming in, because you can't really cut the grass when it's wet. You just tear it up. But yeah, so it's been unusual, but they kept the temperatures low. We're talking about 28 Celsius, 80, 81 Fahrenheit is our high. Usually it's warmer than that. So yeah. So it's chilly in Detroit. It's warm here. It's nice. We're talking 60s to 80s Fahrenheit. It's pretty nice. We'll take it. Yeah, it's been an unusual start to May. It's kind of yeah, the week has kind of moved along. There was I did a fit with what's his name, Jamal, and then I found out later after the fit was done that he was still having issues with his feet, which was unusual. So and I found out later that his prior fitter had put wedges in his shoe. And so I asked him, why did the guy do that? And he couldn't remember what the reasoning was. So I told him, take that out. Because yeah, if your shoe doesn't fit your foot, when you work out, your foot swells. And so that can cause circulation problems, So you want to really minimize things that you put in there. That's why cycling socks are generally very thin. So you don't want to get too crazy. So we're troubleshooting his toe going numb issue, and I think it has to do with the shoe that he has. So I told him to make sure it fits your foot. We've talked about the footbed and all of that. So I told him the first thing to do is take out the wedges. Since he didn't explain, the fitter didn't explain the reasoning behind there. He just put wedges in there and he didn't tell the customer. I don't like when they do that. So I told him just remove it and let's see if it improves, and then we'll start going down the road of doing other things, like maybe checking the cleat position to see if your feet are happy, that kind of stuff. But yes, you want your feet and your rear to be happy, because that's what allows you to really put weight on the saddle. If your feet are not happy, you can't really ride efficiently because you will be moving somewhere else as opposed to driving the pedals when you go fast. So remember that. The contact points, the 3 contact points where you sit, your feet, and your hands, they need to be comfortable. You don't need to have any unusual weight in any one area that's uncomfortable for you. So it's been kind of neat working with him. So he's got his action item to go through and get in there. Andrew, he says, what's the best training for my first crit? Well, just ride. I mean, you need to work on speed. So you need to make sure you have snap. You need to be able to accelerate. You can't be riding at low cadences and go do a crit. So you need to have speed, and you need to be able to handle changes in speed, meaning your engine needs to be able to go in the red, come back repeatedly. Your body needs to be able to tolerate that. So that should be part of your training program before you go spend money to do a crit. If you have not prepared either by doing fast group rides, preferably group rides that are aggressive, don't go pay money to go to a crit, because you just, although racing is a good way of training, but it can be demoralizing if you're not prepared and you go out there, because a crit, usually they'll set it up maybe a block. It's a short course. And if you're not able to stay with those guys, that you might get lapped, and they won't even let you finish the race. They'll pull you off the course. So remember, just make sure you've done some preparation. That's really critical, because you don't want to get discouraged. You want to be at a level where you can compete, and then you say, okay, I got to do this, and that gets you out the door. That gets you to do more. You don't want to feel like, man, I don't even stand a chance. And that's why I explained it that way. So I don't know your level. I don't know where you are or what you've done. But since you're saying it's your first crit, make sure before you do your first crit, ride with the fast local groups. See how you fare. Because chances are some of those same guys will be at the crit. And that will let you know where you are and what you need to do before you go sign up for a crit. And by riding with those guys in a social setting per se, you will learn with less stress. So yeah, acceleration is key. Lots of acceleration. Every corner, you got to be in the right gear to get out of that corner. Otherwise, the gaps open, and before you know it, you're wasted because you're closing gaps. So yeah, and people will be coming around you, because as soon as they see a gap, they're gonna come around you and close it. And before you know it, you might be in the first third of the pack, and then before you know it, you're at the back because everybody's come around. So yeah, I don't know what you've done, but I would suggest, if you haven't done fast group rides, then skip the crit and go do some fast group rides. It's free. You don't have to pay a fee. Batman. Greetings from Belgium. Welcome. He said, you give really the best cycling advice on YouTube. Thank you. Well, you're welcome, man. I mean, I give what I know, and what I don't know, I look it up. It's from experience and just reading, and I'm always trying to improve my knowledge. And so I'm glad that, I think it's really the explanation, because I get that a lot. There are a lot of people that know more than I do. I think it's really the ability to explain it so that people can receive the information. And I think I've said it before. when I was in high school. I think it was the 10th grade. I had a chemistry teacher. He was very brilliant. He just couldn't teach. He'd come in and just start solving these complex problems on the board, and we're all lost. So yeah, so it's just that, I find a way to explain it, and I use examples so you guys receive it. I think that's what it is. Because there are a lot of people out on YouTube doing stuff, but they don't put details in there. In fact, it's funny you mentioned that, because today I got a notification from YouTube. I see Chris Roxbury is here. Hey, Chris. I got a notification from YouTube from a guy named Ron on your left retired. He one of our legends. He said, "Thank you, Eldred, very well explained." And then I looked. They usually link what the person was doing on the channel. And they showed a video where I had done a long time ago in the maintenance playlist. It says how to remove a press fit bottom bracket. And then I knew what he was talking about, because that video is not very exciting. I don't even know how many views we have, how popular it was. The maintenance videos are really what Paul calls archive material. I just pulled it up. Okay, we have like 1,555 views. Okay, average. But I took the time to explain from beginning to end. So if you watch that video and you've never done a press fit bottom bracket removal or install, you will be able to do it, because I covered the tools you need, how you use them, all of that. So I knew what he meant. But you think about it, this video was made, what is the date on here? This video is about 2 years old. And somebody just watched it today and took the time. And this is what I've talked about. Like when we had 200 subscribers, I made a video about the fact that a lot of people watch the videos and don't comment or whatever. When someone takes the time to make a comment, that video touched them. So Ron is already here with us. Something about that video that he was looking for, he probably did a search and he came across it because he wanted to do something with his bike, probably learning how to do his own maintenance. And so he watched the video. It was so effective for him that he took the time to come and leave a sentence, a comment. He said, "Thank you, Elder, very well explained." So that tells me that it's perfect for somebody who wants to invest the time to really know. Because I watch, you guys probably have the same. Paul and I, before we started this channel, you come on YouTube and someone put a title on how to do something, but they skip like what tool you need to use at this step. And then you're following them and you're like, okay, how did you get that out of there? I've had the same frustration working on my Campy wheels. The wheels I have, the Urus, and we have Zondas now, both Paul and I, but I had the Urus, and one of them is real bad now. So over time, they have aluminum nipples and the spoke is not aluminum. So sometimes they seize, and then the rim also. So the Campy has a funky way of removing and installing new nipples, because they don't have the nipples exposed in the wheel where you need a rim tape. You don't need a rim tape, because that's the way they design that wheel. So that means the nipple falls inside the hollow of the wheel. So you get it out, but then to get the new one, you got to use a magnet. And if you don't know how to use the magnet, even have a tool that you screw into the nipple that's magnetic, steel, so the magnet can grab it. All of that is missing from some of the steps that people put out there. That's what I'm talking about. So I knew. So it's just the explanation. So when you make a comment like that, I'm the best teacher on YouTube. I've only been doing this on YouTube for a couple of years. I kind of know where you're getting at. And that's why I took that explanation. So it's because communication is a two-way street. If you're talking to somebody and their eyes glaze over because you're using big terms or whatever, some people do that to try to impress you with their knowledge, then you're not being effective. So you need to, regardless of how well you know something, you should be able to explain it in layman's terms to where the person can at least understand what you're saying. It doesn't make them an expert, but they'll be on page with you. And that's what I try to do. So yeah, so I appreciate those kind of comments. It lets me know that my style is effective, because a lot of people come on there sometimes and say, "Oh, the video's too long." Well, I had to cover the topic. I'm sorry, it's not a 3-minute topic. So here we go. MRE 34 from Orlando, Florida. Welcome. The Floridians are here. I believe Chris is in Florida also. I don't know if you guys are getting storms in Florida or not, but we're in the thick of just rain, and so I'm making sure all my batteries are charged and everything, because every time it rains, we lose power. and I made a joke to my wife, and I've also mentioned it to Paul. We make all this big noise about it. We are the leaders of the new world. A little bit of rain, we lose power. I mean, come on. It sounds like our grid needs some work. So, we talk about it all the time. We lost power. I think Paul Ilonga was out of power for at least 12 hours or more. You know, because I think it was like until noon Saturday before he got power at his home. I mean, come on. The rain has stopped 8+ hours ago or something like that. And not just, it's like the whole city had so much of an outage. You could go to the site of Reliant Energy, is one of the companies we are going through. But we have several companies producing power, supplying power. And you could see all the outages. So like, what are they doing? A little bit of rain is crippling us. I mean, come on. And it's time for a new grid, it sounds like. Because it doesn't take much. So I make sure when we have a little bit of power with these storms, I get all my batteries charged and everything, so I'm ready for stuff that I'm filming or whatever. Because you never know when the power is going to go. Let's see here. Andrew Kennedy says, yes, I have been riding with fast riders, but I don't know what fast enough for my first crit. Okay. Yeah, there's no way you're going to know, Andrew. So if you're riding with fast riders, hopefully you're comfortable riding in a group. So the best advice I can give you is stay at the front. And then it depends on which category you're going to sign up to race with at the crit. If this is your first, you might be, I guess, in Texas, we have like Cat 5. I don't know if it transfers over because, it's probably the same. If you're doing USCF racing, Cat 5 is like the beginners, and then you got Cat 4, and then you got 3, 2, 1, and Pro. So I'm going to assume you're probably at least going to be doing 5 or 4. And so, 5, you just stay near the front because they're all new and the skill levels are different. You stay out of crashes, and that's any level. Just stay with the faster guys or the guys who are driving the pace, first, third. So, do the ride. I mean, do the race, and then you will see whether the ride you've been doing is fast enough, because it varies. It depends on who shows up for your group ride as to how fast it is. But I think Cat 5 is the beginning. You should be able to hang, okay, and that will give you an idea of how much more work you need to do if you want to continue to do that. But criteriums are just multiple accelerations, sprint, and not like a road race. So you've got to go in there and make sure you're warmed up. Don't get that cold. When that race starts, you got to be able to go. You got to be ready to go. So get there early enough, get on a trainer, warm up, or ride to it if it's practical. You need at least 30 minutes so you're ready to go. That's the best advice I can give you. And then after that, you can see where you stand and what kind of program you might need to really get yourself, better. Make up with what might be a shortcoming. And, since you started with Cat 5, once you get comfortable and you start doing well at Cat 5, then you want to cat up to the 4s and the 3s over time. That will keep it interesting. So Eric Nell says, I bought a set of Vittoria Corsa tires. I was surprised to see that the maximum PSI is as high as 145. The Continental is only 120. Do you know why this is so different? What PSI do you use? I'm glad you said maximum. Just ignore that, because there is no reason to ever put 145 PSI in a tire. And Vittoria is designed, they call them open tubulars. Tubular tires can take more pressure generally. So they're designed with a cotton, they call them cotton tires or whatever. But they can handle 145, but you don't want to ride that. It'll be too hard and uncomfortable. I ride 95 in the front, and 90 in the front, 95 in the back. All the time, all tires. I don't care what the manufacturer puts on there. I don't care what it is, 23. I have a bike, the blue bike, I put 23 on the front, 25, but the rest of the bikes I use 25. Even with the 28, I'll do 95 in the rear. When it's raining, I'll do 90 an 80. I mean, I will do 90 in the back, 85 in the front. I drop about 5 psi when it's wet. It gives me more traction. You're not gonna notice it. And with the bigger tires, the 25s that I ride, they roll really well. You will really enjoy your tire. You don't need to ever go over 100 psi in these tires to enjoy them. Now, the Vittoria Corsa is not designed for you to ride training every day. They're not going to outlast the 4000S that you mentioned in there. They're not designed for durability. They're designed for performance. They are pure racing tires. Those are the tires I use on the weekends, the Vittoria. I just love the way they ride. I love the sound you get from them on the tarmac. They make a very unique sound versus any other tire I've used. And I do use the 4000S on one bike, and I have the Vittorias on the orange bike and the blue bike. So yeah, I love the Vittorias. I'm partial to them. You don't need, none of them, even the 120 on the other one, you don't ever need to run 120. It's too hard. I know people do, but it's uncomfortable. You'll feel everything. It's like riding on rocks. 100 PSI or less is fine. And I got to 90, 95 just by trial and error over time, and just found that that's fine for me. When you go over the expansion cracks or imperfections in the road, you hear that kerplunk from the tires. You hear the suppleness of the rubber. You really get to experience that, kind of like in your car. So like my car, the tire is stamped at 50 PSI maximum. I run 32 all around. So you go over bumps, just kaplunk, kaplunk. You guys know the sound you get. That's why you don't run 50 in your car. If you're storing your car or you're going to ship your car, then the max the air up the tires to protect the rubber because it's going to be sitting for a long time. That's the only reason. But don't. And I'm using cars so you can see the correlation. It's the tires. So don't worry about that. 145, no. Now some of the pros that run what they call tubulars, we used to call them sew-ups, because basically they're stitched. The tubes are stitched in there. They'll run higher pressures for specific races. You will not see any of those guys running high PSI in Paris-Roubaix, all the crappy roads that they're riding on. They actually go even lower than I've listed here. Okay, because those guys are very particular, and then they use bigger tires, and so forth and so on. So they put a lot of time into it for their comfort and handling and performance for the surfaces. For the roads we ride, you never need to go over 100 PSI. I don't care how big you are. And I've explained it before. Your weight is not just on the tire. The diamond frame of the bicycle is also holding your weight. The wheel, the spokes, they hold your weight. It's not just the tire. Because a lot of people ask, I'm 250 pounds. Still, you should enjoy the tire. It doesn't matter. So that's the same thing. So I hope this will clear it up for you, Eric. John Hill, are endurance bicycles good bicycle for group rides? Yeah. Any bicycle that fits you is good for group rides. That includes a mountain bike. I've said that before. These manufacturers come up and think about it. Who came up with the name endurance bike? It sounds like marketing to me. My mentality has always been, if the bike fits me and I'm comfortable, I can do a long ride. That's what they mean by endurance bike, meaning it's more comfortable. They probably give it a taller head tube and all of that, and I don't really buy all of that. If you put the bars where your body says it needs to be, the saddle and everything, you ride any bike and do endurance riding, which is what, long distance stuff. Now, if you're touring and doing other things, a race bike, it's not going to work. And it's simply because you won't have the attachments for your panniers and carrying stuff. And so maybe that's where they started badging these bikes or so forth. But you can use the same dimensions from a bike you race, and you can have somebody build you the same dimensions on the bike and just put the necessary attachments for carrying cages or panniers or whatever, and that bike will be fine. Of course, the material of choice, if you're going to be carrying a lot of stuff, would be, maybe titanium or steel or something. as opposed to just straight carbon if you're going to be carrying a lot of heavy things and so forth. That would be the only consideration. So yes, we have people, even Christian, some of you guys have seen him on the film. He's done group rides in the past with his mountain bike. He uses his mountain bike to do cyclocross races early in the year or in the winter. I think they have them in late October around here. So yeah, bike fits you. All you probably have to do, like if you had a mountain bike, you may want to just make sure the tire is for road. You know, you don't have knobby tires for the dirt, so you can roll better. Yeah, and they've got tires that you can probably use for the dirt and the road. They have all kinds of things out there, all kinds of choices. So yeah, there's no reason to have so many bikes for each discipline. We've talked about it before. Someone asked a similar question, I believe. So you can have a bike that you can use for cyclocross and also, you know, go on the road. I mean, the cyclocross bikes now, when you look at them, other than the fact that they got disc brakes, they look like a road bike. At the top level, I watch those guys on the Olympic channel all the time. You know, the guy who won the race, Matthew, and Ward Bernard, I don't know if I got his name right. Those guys, the bikes they ride, you can ride on the road because the cyclocross course actually has some sections where might as well be road. So yeah, just make sure whatever bike you get fits you, and then don't go buy an endurance bike. And if your body says the stem should be 8 centimeters below your saddle, then because that bike has a tall head tube, you can't do that. You might be uncomfortable on the so-called endurance bike. It still has to fit you. That's the key. All right, let's see here. Chris Rippey, I live at the base of Mount Baldy, 10,000 feet, lots of climbing in my neighborhood. Your thoughts on training for big climbs? You just got to ride them, and you need to have the right gearing. The gearing on your bicycle should correspond with where you ride. So if you have, it's not so much the fact that it's 10,000 feet. What's more important is what kind of gradients are you going to be dealing with? Because as you go higher, the air will be thinner. So that means you will be under more stress because you're just not going to be breathing the same as sea level. So it's important that you measure your pace. And it's important that you have the proper gearing so you don't go anaerobic, you know. So you may need a compact on your bike, like a 3450 in the front, and then you might need a 28 or 30 in the back. I don't really know what you need. So just keep in mind, that's what matters. That's what I talk about all the time when people say, oh, I've got big climbs or whatever. You're going to be going slower, but putting out higher effort. Or with the gearing I described, if you have the proper gearing, you can ride that mountain on a day where you just want to do your zone 2. And you would just use the proper gearing to keep you in that zone. That's the thing. If you're not geared properly, and the mountain won't be a lot of fun because you would feel like you're killing yourself every time you ride it. Then you won't look forward to doing it anyway. So you need to get the proper gearing that will enable you to keep the cadence and the zone you need when you ride it. That's how you ride mountains or any road. The same thing. So if the road's flat, you're on the big chain ring. And then you start going into the 15, 14 or whatever to keep you in whatever zone you need to be in. That's the same. It's just the same thing. So on the road, on a flat road, you're going faster. On a mountain pass, you're climbing at 10 kilometers an hour, depending on the grade and the gearing you're in and how hard you wanted to work that day. So, but so you could ride a mountain pass every day at different effort levels. But it will take you a while to get up there, and then you descend like that, So you got to pack clothing when you're descending. It might be colder. Hey, Marcus C. Wesley Stevens, greetings. Training hampered by rain and road closures, doing the Hilly Horsey 100 in Kentucky in 3 weeks. Would muscle tensioning work on the trainer for next 3 weeks? Muscle tensioning? I'm not sure what that is. Be a good plan to follow. What do you mean by muscle tensioning? You should already have a program and just stick with that. You don't need to change it because you're not on the road. It's your zones that matter. So if you're, in order to get to the zone, that you want to get in, yeah, you got to put pressure on you got to pedal harder to get to that zone, but you keep your cadence reasonable. So if that's what you mean, it shouldn't be anything different. Yeah, it's just boring to train indoors. It's more fun being outside, but just because the road's closed does not mean you can't do your workout. There's a lot of riders that spend most of the week on the trainer. That's what I've been doing the last few weeks. I've been busy. The weather's been crazy. So I just put it on the trainer for 45 minutes, warm up, work on my zones, 20 minutes, threshold, and then cool down. So depending on what plan you're following, just do the workout on your trainer and keep your cadence in the zone that the plan calls for. And then you're ready to go. Just what you were going to do on the road, it's just not a whole lot of fun. That's why people turn on the TV or they do other things. And that's why some people have Zwift so they can go longer. It's because it occupies the mind. But if you have a workout that you're following, it's not boring. And I believe you have the base plan, the in-season plan. I'm almost done, so it'll be coming out. But yeah, just do what you've been doing on the trainer and do it for the same zones. If you have your zones, you have zones. You have your training week and have zones for each day. And you do that. So Daryl Shank says, Eldred, I know of a shop that will do cleat fittings. I personally tried different brands, and it came down to Shimano and Specialized. Specialized became KOM. What is your take on that process? What process? I'm not sure what you mean by process. I have a video on how to fit your cleats. You could do it yourself. It's in the archives in the bike fit section. It's called Setting Your Cleats Without Cops. And then one of them, I think I did about knee pain. So you could do that yourself. But I prefer Shimano. I don't own anything Specialized. I've tried their stuff. Their shoes were too narrow, so it just didn't work for me. I didn't know they made cleats. But yeah, I use Shimano. I like the Shimano platform because it's wide. Yeah, even look is narrower. You take the look cleat, put it on the Shimano platform, it sits in there. So yeah, but setting the cleat should not be anything that difficult. If you just get a fit. The person who did your fit should have walked you through how to set your cleat. Or if you need the video, you can do that. But just pick a brand you're comfortable with. I mean, I'm not familiar with the Specialized cleats, but make sure you get something that will work for you before you spend money on it. Shimano, I like because it's wide. Like I said earlier, I don't know what a Specialized cleat look like. Let me see if I can find a picture of it here. Maybe that might help me with. Let's see. So whoever did your fit before should help you with that. I don't know if you're just going to go get a cleat fitment. I don't just do somebody's cleats because that's one part of a fit. So unless I've worked with them on their fit before, if they just show up and say that one cleat adjusted, I question that because that may cause other problems somewhere else because I don't really know how to set up. So I don't know how this shop is just doing cleat placement without checking the two contact points that relate in that regard, where you sit and where your feet are. Those two go hand in hand. It's kind of like doing one and not the other, because depending on the setting of the cleat, it can throw off where you sit on the saddle. Not that you have to move the saddle, but it can pull you away from where you're happy. So they really should be looking at both. Let's see here. I see Specialized here, but I don't see any cleats for Specialized. So I don't know. I don't think I didn't think they made cleats. I see their shoe and shoe covers. So I don't know if they make cleats. He said it came down to Shimano and Specialized. Specialized became KOM. I'm not sure what you mean they became KOM. Is that King of the Mountain? So you have to clarify, Daryl. I'm not following the rest of that statement. Hey, Psycho Warrior. Psycho Warrior wants to know, but can an endurance bike be any bike can be a race bike. It's not the bike that races, is you. If the bike fits you, you can go take it to the race. You're the one doing the work. The reason you want the bike to fit you so that when you put the effort out, it can transfer your power. Yeah, there's no particular bike that is called race bike. Yeah, there's people getting that. That's marketing. You know, oh, this bike is aggressive. That doesn't mean anything. The bike can be aggressive, but if it doesn't fit you, you can't enjoy it. So the bottom line is the bike needs to fit you. This is what I talked about. Like those of you who bought Greg LeMond's book that I had mentioned, Greg LeMond said that he cannot ride a bicycle that has anything steeper than a 73-degree seat tube angle. It's a guy who's won the Tour de France, you know. So that's as hard as you'll get. 73. And then they say, oh, this bike is aggressive, meaning it's 74, whatever. That's garbage for a guy like Greg or even Eddie Marks. They need the seat angle to be in that position so they can get their saddles in the right spot to sit and have the leverage they need for that pedaling. So don't get taken by these badges on the bikes. Pay more attention to your body and what bike fits you. That's the reason why we talk about getting the bike sizing before you spend your money. Don't get drawn in by this marketing stuff. If the bike does not fit you, you will always have problems. And a fitter may not be able to get you to fit the bike. A lot of people have commented bike's too big for them or whatever. So yeah, that's what don't quit worrying about what they call the bike. Find out what bike fits you. And then find out whether the bike, regardless of what they call it, has the dimensions you need if you're going to buy it. So people who know what bikes fit them, they don't shop in the stores that much. They go on eBay and they watch these people who have bought bikes that don't fit them, that are trying to unload them, because used bikes don't have a very good markup because you're stuck. You've got a bike that you bought. Doesn't mean somebody else wants it. So you can get a deal used if you look on eBay if you know what bike you need. So remember, the first thing is to know what you need, what angles and whatever. That's why I did that video with the Specialized and all that stuff. That was the whole reasoning. So don't worry about what they call the bike. Worry about the dimensions of the bike and whether it's going to work for you. That's what's more important. So let's see here. Cycle Warrior said Mount Baldy is no joke. You can ride any mountain pass nowadays with the technology. This is not back in the day when we had 4 to 6, or this is 6 gears, or long before they invented the derailleur. With the derailleur, in fact, those of you who follow the history videos I used to make, when the derailleur was introduced, the Tour de France back in the early 1900s frowned on it. Henry de Grand did not want people to use derailleur. He said that, no, you should use a fixie, because a derailleur for people who are old or weak or whatever. That was the thinking. So with the derailleur now, unless you have the wrong gearing, you can ride anything. People putting 32 on the back, you know, back in the day, that you probably would laugh at you. So if you got a steep grade, find where you can handle, and then get the right gearing, you can spin your way up that thing. You will get the same workout, you know, depending on what zone you want to do. But if you go there with a tight cluster, yeah, you will struggle, and it won't be a whole lot of fun. So no, you've got to get what you need for your area. That's what you put on your bike. The pros do the same thing. When they're going to do a race and it's very steep, the mechanics change everything on the bikes for that race, you know. And so, yeah, so don't worry about it. It doesn't matter how steep the hill is. What matters is, are you prepared? Do you have what you need to ride that terrain? And if you don't, then yes, you will struggle. And somebody else who's prepared will just spin by you while you're struggling. Robert Tenkler said, did you ever race where altitude was a concern? Yeah, I raced in Colorado, and, you know, it's always a concern, but I didn't have the luxury of going there a month before, so we just went cold turkey. And you just had to pretty much keep your effort down, because if you get there too late, you can't acclimate. You need several weeks. So you just go. And, you know, I didn't have too many problems because I just had to be more conservative than at sea level. Because as you start going higher, the air is thinner. You just can't get oxygen in. So you're not going to be doing no major breakaways in that situation. So you wait for descents, or because a lot of times the races would end down in the valley. So you held your own. You guys have seen the what's the Amgen Tour of California? It's the same stuff they go through. A lot of these guys are coming from Europe where they're not at altitude when they come to that race, and so they have to just temper their efforts. And then the people who have been there and they're acclimated, they're the ones who are getting all excited and they're expending energy. But you got to know, because you mess up on a long climb, if you blow, you lose so much time. So you just have to, yeah. It's just a matter of using your head and listening to your body. That's the key. Pacing. Wesley Stephen is explaining what he mean by muscle tensioning. I'm not sure why you're going to do big gears, cadence of 50 to 60 before a big event, unless you're trying to build strength. But the key is that if something is under 6 weeks away, you're not going to make any appreciable improvement to benefit from that event if you haven't already been working long before. So don't do anything different than what you've been doing because something's coming up. Otherwise, you might go there with dead legs and have a lousy experience. So if you haven't been doing that, don't do it because something's coming up. Don't start doing something new because an event is coming up. You should have been doing that 12 weeks ago because you knew this event was coming up. And those of you who watched all the group rides, remember Jerry was talking about they were going to Maryland to do some 200-mile ride or whatever. He was trying to talk me into it and this and that. I told him, nope, not interested. Do things you've prepared for. Then you will enjoy it because you would have gotten your body ready weeks before. Don't try to do something new right before an event. You're not going to, the body does not work like that. It's not a light switch. You need a period of time. So the people I coach, we look at 6-week blocks of time. That's how we make changes to the plan. Not a week or two. That's not enough to get any kind of measurable improvement. So keep that in mind. So don't change what you've been doing. Do what you've been doing. Make sure you recover when you go to your event. So Darryl Shank said, that explains why the Specialized worked. I have narrow feet. The Shimano were too wide. They do a molding to make the interior fit more accurate. I did not invest in this. KOM is king of the mountain. Oh, well, if they did a molding for you to fit the shoe, then that means that the shoe did not fit your foot in the first place. So a molding sounds like they did a footbed for you, which is fine. That's great. They did a custom footbed. That's great because, like I've explained, your foot needs to mate with that shoe. There should be no movement when you're riding. So that's great that the shoe fits you. And then if your feet are narrow and those smaller cleats work for you, great. Then that's what you need. But you got to look at the whole thing. The foot is a part of the fit, and where you sit those two work together to make sure the bike feels like you're not trying to reach for something. If you're riding and you have to inch forward because before you pedal, that means you're not sitting where you want to be. You shouldn't have to move a millimeter to pedal. Everything should be to feel like it's right there. That's what I mean by the aha when you do a fit. So yeah, so that's your goal. So Kent Jones, welcome. I don't think I've seen Kent before. He says, I just started cycling 3 times a week. I'm wondering why my right leg feels weird and it's out of balance when I ride. My right arm gets worn out during the bike ride. Okay, I kind of see where you're going at, but your adjectives are kind of like gray area, but I think it makes sense. Like we all know here, the first thing is, since you just started riding more or just started riding, the first thing I would say is you need a bike fit. Because if the bike doesn't fit you and you start to ride more, then the little niggling issues become big issues. So remember that. So if you did not get the bike to fit you, did not get a professional fit, that's the first thing you need to ride more, so that your body and the bike are mated. Otherwise, you will start having numbness in your hands and whatever. If your leg is feeling weird, it could be maybe the saddle's off, or the cleat that Daryl's talking about, or your shoe. There are so many factors. That's why I will just sum it up and say you need a bike fit. So you can get somebody local. You know, don't just go to a bike shop and say you want a bike fit. Go to a bike fit studio so you can get a specialist to fit you to your bike. Not some guy working at the bike shop that happens to do a fit. So that's where a lot of those guys that I get here have been, and they've already spent their money and they're unhappy. And that's why we do the remote fit now, because a lot of people spend money even at fit studios, and the people just do stuff. Like I was telling you guys about Jamal. The guy put wedges in his shoe and didn't even tell him. I mean, come on. So yeah, so just be very selective. I made a video about how to select a fitter. It's in the archives there. You can search for it, but get a fit. If you're going to ride three times a week, that's a good amount of time to where you will have discomfort if the bike is not fitted properly. And as you ride and when the bike is fitted properly, you will start having fun and you will ride more. And then you will get fast. But when it's uncomfortable, you don't look forward to the next ride. So Daryl Shank says he has specialized S-Work 6 road shoes. Yeah, the specialized shoes are very narrow. And since you have narrow feet, they should work great for you. I've never been able to get the shoes to work for me. I need a lot of room in the toe box. So I can ride Shimano, Lake. I currently ride Giro because they have a wide toe box. So D in DC says he does 3 group rides a week. Different rider levels. The fast guys usually drop me, but I'm faster than the slower guys, so I end up solo most of the ride. I don't have more time to train. Advice. Yeah, you don't need more time. You're kind of in between groups. If you want to improve, you have to maximize the time you do have. So you need a training program. That's how you do it. And I'm assuming you have some kind of training tool if you're not really good at training by feel. So let me be more general. So let's say you've got 6 hours a week I would say 7 to improve. I think a minimum of 7, because cycling is a tough sport. Let's say you got 7 hours a week and you're in between these groups now. So, you know, you start with the fast guys, they drop you, you end up riding alone because you're faster than the slower guys. So you need that little bridge. So what those fast guys are doing more work, or they have more experience or whatever. So what you need to do is to say, okay, I'm not doing enough with these hours. I need to do more, right? I only got 7 hours. So that means you need maybe a little more intensity, because you only have a certain number of hours, and then you may need to steal from intensity and give hours to endurance, because you got to find out why you're lasting for only blah, blah, blah time, and then try to ride more than that time on your endurance day. So you need somebody to build you a plan with the time you do have. That's kind of what we do. So when people sign up for coaching, the form on the website says, how many hours do you have to devote each day? And they put their hours in as they sign up. And we take those hours based on their goals and tell them, okay, use this number of hours for endurance, this for that. That's how you do it, because time is finite. This is the reason why on Saturday, you guys only see first part of the group, especially when we do Team RR. We record that first part, I put the camera up, and we keep riding. I don't have time to wait around with those guys because they stop too much. I think it was Chris Roxbury. In the winter, we recorded a longer part of the ride. He saw how many stops there were, and he made a comment on that video. He said, too many stops. Yeah, that's the thing, they waste your time. So when I ride 6.5, 7 hours, I want to be riding for almost 7 hours. I don't want to be messing around. I don't want my elapsed time to be full of waste. That's the key. So you got 7 hours to train. You got to maximize that. So you need a training program so you can focus, and you need some kind of tool if you're not good at feel, either a heart rate monitor or a power meter. If you have the budget, I would recommend a power meter in your case because you're trying to build power, strength, lactate stuff to hang out with the faster guys. So you can really dial in the watts. So you can go ride with them and see what watts you're having problems with. And then you come back and we'll give you. You don't want to just train hard the whole week because you will be dead when you hook up with those guys. That's why you need a plan. So I hope that will help you. Hey, Bill McCallis, one of our super legends. How you doing? From Southern California. Brian Baldino, why do I go faster going up hills when I stare down at the bottom bracket? I'm sorry. When I stare down at the bottom bracket, but when I look at the hill, I go slower. I don't know. That's a good one. I have no idea. I'm not going to say I know why, Brian. Maybe it's psychological for you. I don't know. We were trained, we were taught, what my coach used to tell me when you're climbing a long climb, don't look at the top of the climb, pick something maybe 200 yards away and break up the climb. You pick, okay. So in other words, 200 yards, I'm going to mark something and say, okay, that little spot. Then you got another spot and another spot. Maybe when you look ahead and you quit because you just see it's a big job, that could be it, but I have no idea why you go faster when you're looking at the bottom bracket. But don't look at the bottom bracket. You need to see the road, man. You got to see where you're going. But it could be just psychological. But no, you want to break up the climb and just get a tempo you can maintain. And then maybe halfway up the climb, you can edge it up. But don't start out too fast. I've never heard of that. Looking at the bottom bracket and going faster. Yeah, you got to look at the road. Don't look at the bottom bracket and end up having a crash or something. That's funny. Let's see here. Ian Hunter says this Sunday he's doing a 100-mile ride called the Birmingham Velo. 1,700 riders on closed roads. That sounds cool. I've been training for it for 3 months and I feel ready like Freddie. Well, good luck. Have fun out there, man. Yeah, that's cool. Find a group that is holding a pace you like and sit in. It'll be a lot more fun. Jeffrey, welcome, man. That's funny. It's thundering now, so we're getting our afternoon storm. This feels like we're in Florida. I was in Tampa many years ago on a business trip, and every afternoon it seemed to rain. Like you'd have a sunny morning and then afternoon showers, and then it clears back up in the evening. I guess that's what they have in Florida. We're getting that here. That's what we're getting. It's rumbling right now. Let's see here. So Bill McCollis says, I don't have a power meter, but I use a heart monitor. Is it possible to estimate my FTP without the power meter? No. You can't estimate your functional threshold power. You need a power meter to display the watts that you average when you do the test. So if you're training with a heart rate monitor, you need your functional threshold heart rate. So get your functional threshold heart rate. That's the test for heart rate monitor users. I made that video about power meters last week for this very purpose because it has its value if you want to use it. And that's why I try to give the pros and so forth. You don't have to use a power meter. I mean, most of us that ride now, we don't use a power meter. But if you can afford a power meter, it's nice to have. And it's a good tool, especially for people who are not good at training by feel. But if you're using a heart rate monitor, that's a different kind of training. It is nothing like a power meter. That's your internal. That's your heart. I talked about it on this ride. When I'm going hard now, my heart rate might be 148, 149. It doesn't mean that's where I am. It may say my heart rate is saying my heart is in zone 2 for me. My legs might be in zone 4. It takes my heart rate more time to get to zone 4. I have to stay at that effort so much longer because I've been riding for so long and I'm fit. It takes my heart rate maybe 10 minutes to finally display, okay, I'm working in zone 4. By then, the effort might be over. So most of the time when I'm working, I don't pay attention to my heart rate because when I go out during the week and I'm doing a 2-minute interval or whatever, hammering up a hill, my heart rate might be 145. That doesn't mean that's how hard my legs are working. Your legs are riding the bike, not your heart. So don't get hung up on that. It's really about the fitness of your, I would say, I don't want to call it a recovery system, but it's related. Because your heart has to do a certain amount of work after your legs have done work to get the lactate out, bring the nutrients in. And as you ride more and more, your heart does not work as hard to do that same work. That's the way you gauge the fitness. If you look, a lot of the UCI pros still wear a belt for their heart rate, but they balance that in their data. They analyze and that against the power meter numbers to say, okay, at this power, what was my heart rate doing? Because they have base where they know that, okay, 6 months ago, at this power, my heart rate was this number. Now today, they want to gauge improvement. Okay, that's what they do. Those guys guard their heart rate numbers. The pros don't release their power numbers that often. They might do that maybe from a big race or something, but for their training, they guard that because they don't want to let their competitors get more confidence. If Chris Froome releases power number and everybody sees that, okay, all he has to maintain is 5 watts per kilo when he's going on these bouts, these guys can go train and try to work on their 5 watts per kilo. It gives them more psychological confidence in a race. That's why those guys guard their power numbers. They don't display that out there. So that's the same. I just wanted to explain that so you get a feel. So it's nice to have as reference. Don't use that when you're riding. Pay attention to what your legs are doing. That's why I talk about your cadence. Pay attention to how your legs feel at a certain cadence in a certain gear, and then you can reference, okay, what is my heart rate doing now in this condition? And as you improve, what will happen is in a similar situation, the heart rate will be lower. So try as I might, when I do a 1 or 2 minute hard effort, my heart rate barely breaks 150 now. But when I do a time trial, my heart rate's in the 180s. Because if I work for 50 minutes or more, by 20 minutes into it, it starts getting up in the 170s and so forth. So the rides that I've done, when you start seeing 170, we're riding hard. And what ends up happening is my legs don't feel any different if my breathing just changes. Because once your heart rate starts, getting higher up there, your breathing changes. But my legs feel about the same because they've been in that zone and the heart rate is just catching up. The legs don't change. Your breathing will change, and then you start paying attention to cadence to make sure you don't blow. That's the key. Training is very complicated, So I'm very thankful. I was fortunate to have a coach, so I learned a lot about myself, and that's how I'm able to help people, because it's very complicated. There's so many variables. All right, let's see here. Let's try to wrap this up. Chris says, yes, that was me. Too many Savellos in Texas. I must give them out for free. No, there was a sale at the shop. I guess everybody went there to buy. So you're welcome, Bill. Bill gives me a thumbs up here. Let's see here. Ian Hunter said, thanks, Elder. I plan to find a group and work smart, not hard. Ian's going to do the 100-mile ride. Yeah, when you do the 100-mile ride, find a group working at a pace that is comfortable for you. You sit in. Because your elapsed time will be faster, you will travel better, and just ride with the group. Take your cuts. Because it's hard to find a good group at a big ride, because then you lose them, at the stops. They might stop, you don't want to. So you're constantly looking for a group. One might be too fast, too slow, It's a mess at those rides. So when you find a good one, you try to find out what their plan is and try to do the ride with them. That's always what we try to do. Let's see here. It rains out west. Daryl Shanks says it rains out west here in South Florida here daily during hurricane season. I saw a storm front on your show hit the next day. This week has been brutal. Yep. Yeah, it's dark. I mean, it's like it's what 17:35 here, which is like 5:35. Yeah, 17:35 in the evening, and it looks like it's 8 p.m. because it gets dark around 8 now, since they moved the time. And it's just you can hear the thunder. There's no rain yet, but it's dark, and that's why we've been losing power every time lightning and thunder. I'm like these boys need to improve the whole system. So it's thundering right now. All right, let's see here. He said the mic is picking up. Yeah, I mean, you can't miss it. It shakes the house. And lightning, you see the lightning too. So all my batteries are charged. So if the power goes out, the last time, like I said, Paul lost power longer than we did. But, let's see here. So Enzo says, once again, I got in from a windy ride in Michigan. I had a headwind at 11 miles per hour. What is the goal when cycling into a headwind? It's the same as any goal. I mean, why do you need a goal? You need to focus on the zone that you want, how hard you want to work. What is a headwind or a tailwind? Find the pace you want to keep. That's the key. That's the joy I like riding my bike, because they're like under your own power, you can just get on the bike and go explore. So it doesn't matter whether the wind's in your face or behind you. You're not setting any speed records. So just ride. Just enjoy the wind. I like the wind, especially in the summer. It keeps me cool. But there's a tendency that people want to do the same speeds they do with the wind behind them. The conditions control that. Like the guys who live near Mount Baldy. You're not going to be doing 22 miles an hour climbing up a climb. So you find the right gear. You know how long it's going to take you. And you just go and enjoy whatever effort you want to do. Same thing with the wind. Pick how fast you want to ride. Find the proper gearing, just like you would do on a climb. In fact, a lot of the people in Denmark, they train into the wind because it's flat there. And they can hold their own on climbs. So the wind is just like climbing, if you want to make it that way. Keep that in mind. So Eric says, Ian Hunter says, he says, Eric, I'm currently 250 pounds, but you ride the hills are harder for us. Yeah, you're carrying more kilos. So your watts per kilo. I'm glad you mentioned that, because the same thing. Let's see, I'm 86 kilograms. That's probably about 190 pounds, thereabout. Close enough. So if I'm riding with guys that weigh, say, 150 or 160 pounds, I'm carrying an extra, 30 pounds, which is 15 kilos or 14 point something kilos. So I have to put out more watts on a climb to carry my weight because I'm heavier. That means they could ride at, let's say, theoretically, they could ride at, say, 300 watts, which it may be watts per kilo for them might be maybe 3 watts per kilo, let's say, just arbitrary numbers. I may have to ride at 5 watts per kilo for me. And sometimes that's not easy to maintain. So that's why the smaller guys will just ride up the climb. They don't have to put out as much power as the bigger guys. So you shouldn't chase them because that's not your favorite terrain. But on a flat road, the small guys have trouble, generally. The wind wears them out, or downhill, you descend faster. That's what the riders in the tour are all various sizes. Some of them descend better. So they wait for the descent. All they do is they keep their pace. And then on the descent, they peg those guys back. So yeah, don't worry about how fast you're going on a climb or into the wind. Focus more on what pace you need to maintain. That's what matters. Okay? So we're going to wrap up, guys. We're done for today's session. We're going to see you guys next Wednesday, the middle of the week. I hope you all have a great weekend. Stay safe, and remember to get those Ks in.